Okay, so we discussed. We're on page 2 of chapter 8, and the idea of in the world to come, according to the Rambam, there's no physical expression, no body, and the crown that's referred to is the knowledge that he has, which is, so to speak, the mode of relationship to Kodesh Baruch Hu. And there's a verse in Isaiah of the have eternal joy. The question is, let me just read down to the bottom of the page. Okay, so now he says the rabbinic statement was they will delight in the radiance of the divine presence. Boy, I don't know why I don't remember this all the time. So at the bottom of the page, he says, what is meant by the expression delight in the radiance of divine presence? That is, they will comprehend the truth of godliness, which they cannot grasp while in a dark and humble body. I don't know why one second, let me just check the Hebrew here. Phew. Very glad I'm going through this now. I forgot this statement. The Rambam says that Moses asked 2 things of God. They're both in the Chumash. One is, Harini nas derachacha, show me your ways, by which he was asking to know God's actions and his principles of action. And God answered him, yes, I will, and he did. The other thing he says, Harini nas kvodecha, show me your kavod. Now, kavod in Hebrew has various translations, but the Rambam says there he meant, show me, enable me to understand the essence of your being, your very nature as the Creator. And there he says, no, I'm not giving that to you. Ki lo yirani ha'adam v'chai. Because a person cannot see me and live. Now, if you learned, a smidgen of Gemara, you immediately hear, aha! A person can't see me and live. But if he's not alive, sounds like it's being alive. That's the problem. But if he isn't alive, then he will be able to. Well, here you have it, word for word. The bottom of page 2, this is the 8th chapter, the 2nd halacha. What is meant by delight in the radiance of the divine presence? That they will comprehend the truth of godliness, which they cannot grasp while in a dark and humble body. This idea that it's the body that stops you is written in a dozen places. But here he's telling you explicitly that while you're in that body, you can't have it, but afterwards, you can. That's what Chazal mean when they say, now, I think this is very important philosophically. You hear a lot of people say that God is infinite, God is transcendent, God is beyond, God can't be understood, God can't be described. He's not like anything else that we know as human beings, so he can't be similar to anything. The question is, when we draw the conclusion that we can't understand God, is that because inherently what God is on the one hand and the human mind on the other don't click? It's just the human mind is the wrong tool to use to try to understand this thing. If you mean that, the next question will be, well, let's see, who created the human mind? Didn't God create it? So are you telling me he made the human mind in such a way that we can't understand? And would he have been able to make the human mind differently so we'd understand? No, why not? Aren't you now putting a limit on what God can do? He can't make a mind that can understand it. And if he can, why wouldn't he do it? So one way out is to say, yes, a mind could. It's not beyond God's ability to make a mind that could. He didn't. He had his reasons, which means there's nothing inherently incomprehensible about a creator to a creature. That's not a barrier that's impossible to cross, because Baruch Hu didn't want to cross. He didn't want to cross. So he made us in such a way that we can't do it. You're left over with the question why he didn't want to, since he could have done it. The second position is no, there's an inherent philosophical barrier. But that also invites a question. Why is that? What kind of philosophical barrier is it that a creature can't understand its creator? What is there in the very nature of the creator that a creature, no matter how made, no matter even if God made it, couldn't understand it? Both of those positions have open-ended questions. I'm not saying they're wrong, but they have questions which require, would benefit from further exploration. Here, the Rambam is taking a third position. Yes, God's nature can be understood. And when we say that it's not possible to understand him, it's only because we are in the present state of existence of a soul and a body. And it's the body that stops us from being able to understand. But erase the body, and we would be able to understand. So that means that maybe, and it could be that these things go hand in hand. So since in the world to come there is no body, no physicality, so then we could have full understanding. And that full understanding is the medium by which we attach ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in this world we gain whatever understanding we can gain, which isn't the whole story, not the ultimate depth of the story, that qualifies us for a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world to come. And there we come to finally finish the story and get the total understanding. That's what he's saying here. And here he's saying it word for word. When I've talked about this in the past, I did not remember this passage. So there, I said that it must be this way, but here it is, absolutely word for word. So this So then the question is, why is the body the barrier? What in the body is the barrier? And I think one way to describe it, this is also similar to what I'm learning with another chavus of mine. One way to describe it is this. Let's think about the influence of the body on the intellect. Well, your intellect does a lot of things. It can prove theorems in mathematics, and it can analyze chemistry, and it can think about human emotions and strategies for self-improvement. And the mind also is occupied with what am I going to have for supper, and what will I do with the leak in the roof, and how am I going to pay my taxes. The mind has lots of things that it's directed to, lots of things that it's engaged in. The fact that in our state of existence, the mind and the body are connected to one another and they're meshed to one another means that part of the focus of the mind is on the physical world. And it could be that this understanding of what the Creator is requires the mind not to be divided. It shouldn't be divided. It should be singularly focused. And it may be that the connection of the soul to the body makes that impossible. After all, I told you prior to this that when the soul is connected to the body, it loses much of its capacity. We talked about learning spiritual ideas from physical experiences. Or did I talk to Orla Gola about that? I will talk to you about it. Everyone agrees that when it becomes connected to the body, the soul loses some of its own self-consciousness. Rambam says this in a very dramatic way. You may have heard that on Shabbos you have an extra soul. Neshama Yisera on Shabbos, right? You didn't hear that? Okay, but the Gemara says it. You have an extra soul, extra measure of soul on Shabbos. Rambam says, nobody's aware of that. When I read that, I thought, really? I thought maybe some very great people were. And maybe others disagree, but that's what he says. And he's illustrating that by using that to illustrate that the soul has certain levels. And as we live in this world, so that the soul expresses itself in the consciousness that it's granted in functioning in this world, a great deal of the soul is out of touch. The soul is not even in touch with itself. The soul has no consciousness of itself. So it could be that the reason why the intellect embodied can't understand the essence of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is because part of its focus is distracted by the physical world in which it lives. And once you don't have that, you're not going to be diffused focus in that way, which would mean that even Moses on Mount Sinai, when he didn't eat and didn't drink, and by the way, if somebody asks you a trick question, what about sleeping? Did Moses sleep on Mount Sinai? Well, you could use it as a trick question. Everybody knows he didn't eat and sleep, didn't drink. Did he sleep? Well, the right answer is no, he didn't. And the proof is because he says to the people, I prayed for you that you should be forgiven for the golden calf day and night. Which meant he was praying for 40 days and nights straight. So he wasn't sleeping either. But he was still embodied. He still had a body. He still had to breathe. He still had gravity applying to him. And indeed, some explain, 40 days and nights without eating and drinking. Do you think he came down looking like a scarecrow? Thin and skin and bones? The world's most extreme crash diet? 40 days and nights with no intake? Probably not, you say, huh? Probably not. Probably he didn't shed all of his weight and come down emaciated. Why not? Why not? He didn't eat and drink for 40 days and nights. And the answer is the Torah that he learned nourished his body. He was in a different realm where instead of needing physical food to nourish his body, the Torah that he learned nourished his body. But bottom line, he had a body that needed nourishment, didn't he? So he shouldn't lose weight. And he had a body, functioning body. So even there, he's partly embodied, and therefore he's not going to get the full understanding of God's essence. Moses asked for it, and God said, no, ki lo yir'ani ha'adam v'chai. You can't do it while you're alive. You hear the Rambam says explicitly, but after death he could. So the Rambam's solution, philosophically, to me, I understand better than the other two positions. Here he's telling me there's no absolute gap between the nature of the Creator on the one hand and the mind of a creature. There's no absolute gap. And as I said, I don't see why there should be, because that would mean there's a limitation on what God can create. Why would there be such a limitation? And when we are told that we can't understand, it's only because we're in this state of being where we have a body. And that's why it's crucial that we should go to the world to come without a body, so that our minds can be focused, so that we can understand. That understanding is what, the essence of what we get over there. Yeah.
Is there some reference or idea that eating from the Etz Das perhaps affected the body's perception or connection with Hashem's Das?
What an interesting question. Wow. Let me think about that. That's very interesting. Because Moses asked after the Etz Das, the tree of knowledge. Could it be that Adam... It's a very good question. I think the answer is no, and I think the answer is no for this reason, that when the Rambam says that you go into the world to come with only the soul and not the body, that didn't change when he ate from the tree of knowledge. Adam had to die. Even Adam had to die. We understand because the verse says, it says to Adam, and the day that you eat from the tree, you're going to die. And we understand it to mean, well, if he doesn't eat from the tree, he won't die. And the day that he eats is lav davka, because as the Rambam points out, the day that he eats, it means he's now subject to death. And there's a proof of that when a certain person, Solomon, says to him, I confine you to the city of Jerusalem, don't leave the city, and when you do, the day that you do, you're going to die. and he does leave Jerusalem. Several months later, he executes him. Solomon didn't go back on his word. What he meant was, when you leave, you have the death penalty on you. I'll execute you when it pleases me. That's the way we understand it. So Adam lived for 930 years, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, your time is up. The Rambam doesn't understand it that way. The Rambam understands, Adam being created with a soul and a body, he has to die. Otherwise, he can't get into the world to come. But if he eats from the tree of knowledge, his life will be shortened. Doesn't bring death in. Death was in from the beginning, but his life will be shorter. And I found in one of the slichos, I don't remember which one, it's those who know how to do these things could probably do a search. It talks about Adam, it talks about his transgression of eating from the tree, and in the slichos it says, Kotzar Yamav, Kadosh Baruch Hu shortened his days. And I thought, wow, there's the Rambam word for word. Doesn't say he became mortal, just says he shortened his days. So whoever wrote that slicha probably knew the Rambam and probably was dealing with that idea. Yeah.
Kind of going off of that, is it that the body is just there to provide distraction and test for the soul? Or is the body something that has to be refined into the soul? And then we say, yes, it shortened his days, and then he had to die, but we believe in resurrection of the dead. So at that stage, the body is elevated to some state, or does it, after resurrection of the dead, they have to die again and then go back up into a soul?
Very well asked. That's a very good question. You did a very good job in asking it. And the end of what you came to is the truth. After resurrection, there'll have to be death again, because he's adamant that only the soul goes into the world to come, as we just read, the first two pages here. He says it over and over again and brings sources from verses and from the rabbinic writings. Only the soul goes into the world to come. And you said it very well. The other position is that by the body is not just a distraction, something to make free will possible by opposing the priorities of the soul. No, through your acting out Kadosh Baruch Hu's will, through doing mitzvos, you elevate this body to the point where it can be joined together with the soul, not absorbed into the soul, joined together, glue, connected, joined together, so that both go into the world to come. That's a different view. That's against the Rambam's view. And then you see, still okay, but you see how they dovetail. The idea that only the soul goes into the world to come, and that the body is what stops you from knowing. So if we go in with only the soul, without the body, then you're not stopped. You don't have that barrier. Then you'll be able to understand the Kadosh Baruch Hu completely. I was just trying to explain what the barrier was. Yeah.
And what when he went up before he did not? Does it mean that he went up to a different plane, like different spiritual world, or did God come to him on the mountain? Like where was his body present? On the mountain or elsewhere?
Well, I think both of the things what you say is true, because the position on the mountain was in a different plane. In the Das Tunos, the Rambam, the Ramchal describes 5 conditions the body can be in. If one is the highest, we are presently in number 5, and there are 4 transitions leading to the purification of the body, where it can be attached to the soul and go into the world to come. And the first transition is from our condition to what Moses had on Mount Sinai. So he's definitely in a different condition. And then there are 3 more to take him up to the point where a soul can be accompanied by the body to go into the world to come. Right, that's the Ramchal, and the Rambam has a different position. Okay, yeah.
It's kind of like a related question on this idea of the soul and the body. You know, it was recently mentioned in one of the shiurs that, you know, a 14-year-old boy, he had like a near-death experience, and then he came back and he like perfectly described, you know, the world to come, like as if it's, you know, straight from the Zohar. When you hear something like that, do you think that's possible, or what is the connection between our souls leaving the body and then coming back?
First of all, when you ask a question like that, I hear the question as, could God do it? And then the answer is, of course he could. Right? You know. So the question will be, is it according to the normal rules of how the soul works, or is God making an exception? I don't know. That I don't know. I don't know whether the regular rules are, and there are different opinions about what the soul is able to do. You know, when we take what the Arizal did, that seems to be out of the normal understanding of what souls can do, but the Rizal did it. So I would say, from that point of view, it probably is part of our world. It's like prophecy. In prophecy, a person steps out of the normal realm of this world, and he learns things that couldn't be known otherwise. And this was publicly verifiable when Saul was a young man, and he was working for his father, and one of the things he had to do was keep track of a flock of donkeys, a herd of donkeys, I guess, and they disappeared, and he was searching for them. His servant said to him, "Why are we searching? The prophet Samuel is in the vicinity. Go to him and ask him." See, prophets know things. They know where missing donkeys are. You can ask them, and they'll tell you, right? So you saw that in your own experience, and this was trivial. We went to ask about missing donkeys. This wasn't War and Peace, or how shall I save my life? It's just it'll be faster if you ask the prophet, because he knows. So there you would see in your own experience that they are connected in a way that we're not connected. He knows where they are without tracking them with chips, and that would be the normal. But each position will have a different description, so I don't know if I can answer and take all possibilities. Okay, so that's. I'm so happy I found this. All right, now let's take a look on page 3. Here the Rambam wants to explain his vocabulary. I'll explain it to you in Hebrew in a moment. The term soul, when used in this context, does not refer to the soul which needs the body, but rather to the form of the soul, to the knowledge it comprehends, according to its power. Okay, so now the word that the Rambam used for soul is nefesh. Maybe some of you have become acquainted with a little Hebrew vocabulary, and you think, nefesh? Why would he say nefesh? Isn't the word for soul neshama? There's even a band with that name. Neshama, soul, right? There's no band named Nefesh. Only Neshama. The Rambam says Nefesh. And that's because in biblical language, very often, the word Nefesh is used for the spirituality of the person. And I told you the Rambam's Hebrew is basically Hebrew of the Tanakh. Now, the word neshama is used from time to time, and the Rambam's view is that it comes from the verb linshom, which means to breathe. So the neshama is the life that you have through breathing, which means cows have a neshama. That's pretty low. A neshama should be in a cow, but not a nefesh. Or not the kind of nefesh that a human being has. So the word nefesh, he says, is not that thing which needs a body, like breathing does, because without a body you can't breathe. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ultimate spirituality of the person. Now, spirituality of the person in general terms has lots of features. One is certainly free will, which only human beings have. Another is your appreciation for value, what's important. Appreciation for purpose. But the knowledge that you have is also a feature. And that, he says, is this is what is called nefesh, what that goes into the world to come. Now he uses a difficult phraseology here, which I can't fully explain, because he talks about the soul, and then he says, here I mean the form of the soul. But I'm not quite sure how to read the language. But anyway, this thing that he's talking about that goes into the world to come is the knowledge which it comprehends. I told you this the other day. It's not your intellect. It's not the power to learn, the power to analyze, the power to come to know. It's the knowledge that you have, the knowing, and the understanding that you have. There's a big difference, because you could have understanding given to you as a gift without exercising any intellectual power whatsoever. There are things that you come to know without being taught. No one ever taught you that 16 and 11 is 27. I'm sure you never thought of it before. If I say it to you and you think about it, say, yeah, that's right. You didn't analyze anything, you didn't prove it from axioms, you didn't do experiments, you didn't do a survey. You just think about it and say, yeah, that's right. That's something which is more or less given to you. It's knowledge that you have. That's what takes you into the world to come. Which means, I didn't say this yesterday, but maybe I'll put this in now. We talked about form and matter. I talked about the shape of the table and the fact that it's made of wood. The form is the shape is the form, and the material is the wood. That's true, but there's a deeper level. The Rambam says elsewhere that the real form of something is its purpose. The purpose that you make a table for dictates its shape. That's why it has the shape of the shapes that it has. That's why it's smooth and flat, not curvy. What's wrong with curvy? What have you got against curves? If you're rolling a ball and want to see it go up and down, then make a curvy surface. No question about it. If you want to study how light glints off different angles of surface, make a curvy surface. If you want to eat breakfast, make a flat surface. So it's the function of the thing that dictates its essential quality of shape. Similarly here, also, the ultimate tzura is the ultimate function of the thing. And here, our function is to be connected to God in a certain way. That's what we're created for, to have that connection. And then the fact that we are made capable of achieving knowledge, and that knowledge enables us to connect, is called the tzura secondhand, because it's that which serves its purpose. And I believe there's an echo here in a certain common human idea. Let's imagine that you are excavating an archaeological site from 3,000 years ago. And there's obviously a place where they made fires, and there's some kind of habitation, and there's certain things which look like garments. And then you come across a thing. Well, it's 2 feet long, 6 inches wide, 3 inches thick, not exactly a rectangular solid, no sharp edges, smooth sort of. Half of it is wood, and half of it is metal. And there are painted stripes on it, and that's what it is. Now, you're an archaeologist, right? You're publishing an inventory of what you found on the site. So I think what you'll do is this: you'll take photographs of it, and you'll describe what it's made of and how much it weighs and its density and all the rest, and you'll say, here's a description of what it looks like. We don't know what it is. Why not? It's 2 feet long and 2 feet long and 6 inches wide, 3 inches thick, and it's made half of wood. What do you mean you don't know what it is? Well, it's an artifact. People made this. To know what it is to know what it's for. Is it a weapon? Is it a talisman in their religion? Is it something they used to dig up roots from the ground? Here, what it is determined by its function. Once you know that it was made by an intelligent agent, its identity is given by its function. Okay. Now, naively, people say, that's for things made by people, because people are intelligent agents. When they make things, they make it for a purpose. And if I knew the purpose of the person who made it, I would know what it is. And then there's a natural world, which isn't like that. Yeah, but you see, for us, of course, the natural world was made by an intelligent agent also. So if you don't know the purpose of a tree, you don't know what it is. If you don't know the purpose of a waterfall, you don't know what it is. If you don't know the purpose of clouds in the sky, you don't know what they are. You know what they look like. The tree, you know how it grows. You know you can burn it, but you don't know its identity because it was produced by an intelligent agent. for a purpose. That's its real identity. And that would explain why it has the structure that it has. It grows and it's hard and it's flexible because it has to serve the purpose of giving permanent shade without being blown down by the next strong wind or who knows what. So I think that's what's going on here. The tzura of the Adam, he's saying, is the knowledge that a person acquires, because the purpose of his existence is to be attached to Kadosh Baruch Hu ultimately, and it's through that knowledge that he's going to be attached, and that's why it's called the tzura. This is a very, I would say, important philosophical idea. At any rate, he wants you to know that that's the content of the spirituality that enables him to be connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now he says, going on in paragraph 3, since this life, the life in the world to come, is not accompanied by death, for death is an event associated with the body alone, and in that realm there is no body. Therefore, what's going on to the soul in the world to come is called the bond of life. It's attached to life. Life becomes an inseparable part of its existence. The soul of my master will be bound up in the bond of life. Tzror. Tzror is something that's gathered together and connected. This is the reward above which there is no higher reward, and the good beyond which there can be no further good. This was the good described by all the prophets. Okay, so now I think we should raise the question which was implicit in what we said before, and that is, what's going on there? What's happening there? The soul is there, the body isn't there. So here we have statements in other sources. I don't remember that the Rambam brings them, but he doesn't oppose them, and he doesn't. There's a verse that says, "Yelchu michayil lechoyil." They, the righteous, will go from strength to strength. And the commentary is, the righteous have no rest, not in this world, nor in the next world. Okay, now let's define terms. What does rest mean? Does rest mean lounging with a martini, watching old videos, and regaining my strength? No, that's not what rest means. That may be what it applies, that's what it means. Consider the following. He's playing golf, and he hits the ball onto the green, and it says the ball came to rest 3 inches from the cup. The ball is not sipping a martini, and is not resting its tired muscles and regaining its strength. The ball just stopped moving. Rest is the opposite of motion. Rest is inactivity. So when it says there's no rest for the righteous, even in the world to come, it means that something's going on, something's changing, things are developing in some way. It's not stasis. It's not absolutely being in the same condition and unchanging for eternity. What's changing? What's going on? So the description is that God reveals himself more and more to them. More and more. There's a continuous divine revelation. And we say it's eternal, that means that it never stops, which means there's no boundary to it. It's just that at any one time, there's only a portion revealed, but there's always more to be revealed. What gets revealed? So one explanation is this. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. We know that the way in which our lives develop and the circumstances we find ourselves under is all under his control. Why do things happen? In particular, why does this event happen? Why does that event happen? We are told that the ultimate goal is to achieve good. Everything that happens is for the goal of achieving good. Do we see why that's so? Do we see what the good is? Often we do not. So in this world, we have a certain principle that we understand and commit ourselves to because it comes from the Creator and it comes from a reliable tradition, and therefore I have reason to accept it, but I myself don't see why it's true. Now you come to the times of the Messiah, and Ramchal says, at the times of the Messiah, there will be, God's knowledge will fill the earth, and he says we'll get the absolute minimum. The absolute minimum. What's that? Be able to see that every event in history served, listen carefully, served some good. That's the absolute minimum, that every event in history served some good. Well, if that's the absolute minimum, what more could you have? Well, maybe some of them served multiple goods. And maybe some goods were the result of several events working together. And maybe the particular good that came out required fine-tuning. You know something about the fine-tuning of the universe, without which there couldn't be life. 20 different constants, which if they were off by the tiniest amount, there couldn't be any life. Right? Maybe the good that's coming out requires fine-tuning, and then you could appreciate the fine-tuning in greater and greater detail. And maybe this project of revealing how everything is designed for the good is an endless project, because there's endless depth to the way in which it works. If you know any mathematics, I can give you a simple example. Suppose something happened requiring a trigger of a real number. You can't possibly have real numbers. They can't even be described. So you can get the decimal, like pi, and you get more and more than pi out to 1 billion decimals, I think. But it's not regular, so you just have to keep computing to find out what it is further on out. So maybe every decimal in pi plays a role in affecting the good. That would be this particular good. You'll never get the whole thing. You'll just get more and more aspects of it, more and more understanding of it. Now, what will be the reaction if you see that God ran your whole life for good, even there where you were suffering, even there where you were confused, even there where you were close to despair, and then you pull yourself out of it, that all of it, how will you feel in response? Won't you feel enormous gratitude? Won't you feel enormous love? You see his love for you in concrete terms, and you respond. When someone shows love to you, it's natural to respond in the same way. Now you have an endless future of seeing more and more of the love that God invested in you. That means you have an endless future of growing more and more in your love and in your joy in your relationship to God. That's one way of describing what's going on in the world to come. That means that for the soul, things change. Yesterday wasn't like today. And if they change, there must be time. People ask whether there's time in the world to come. According to this picture, there must be time. Without time, there can't be change. Whether it's metered time, 1 day, 2 days, or it's just this and this after that, time has 2 dimensions. The primitive dimension is before and after. And a more sophisticated dimension is the units of time, which requires certain things to happen regularly. Maybe it's only one thing happening after another. But Yel Michael El Chayil is a testimony to the fact that they are always in continuous development and change. There's a famous verse where there's a vision of heaven, and there's a human being there, a high priest, and he's interacting in certain ways. And then at a certain point, God says to him, there are angels present, and he says, I will give you pathways to walk among these who stand. And the commentators say, these who stand are the angels. They're static. They don't develop. They don't grow. They don't improve. They're created with a certain nature, a certain essence. They're given a certain challenge or a certain job to do. Which is a challenge, a job to do, and they do that. Human beings grow and develop. So the verse says, I'm showing you that you are a developer as opposed to they who are static. The Gaon of Vilna comments, yes, okay, that's what you see from the vision, but the vision places him in heaven. Isn't there an implication that he'll be continuously developing in heaven also? That's the place of the vision. Wow, that's nice. Nice thought. Right. That's the conclusion that he draws. It's in the same vein, that what happens there is not being static. So this is one way to describe what's going on there. And in a certain way, it is an increased understanding of God because, as we said 2 weeks ago, the Maimonides quotes the verse, when Moses asked God, show me your ways, God says, oh, my ways? My actions? Yes, I'll show you that. And he says, I'll show you my ways. I said, show me your ways. Moses says, Ve'idacha, and I will know you. So being shown God's ways is a knowing of God. It's not knowing everything about God. There are other things that the ways don't encompass. Particular doesn't mean that you know his essence, but knowing his ways is also knowing him. So that means that this description of receiving more and more information about what he did is knowing him more and more. Knowing, because you're knowing his actions more and more. So that would be infinitely increasing, what the philosophers call the potential infinity, infinitely increasing process, knowledge of God. And since the knowledge you're getting is knowledge of how he expressed himself in loving kindness towards you, it has that response of love on your side. Okay, that's one way to describe what's going on there. Let's say this isn't directly in your question.
Rabbi Moshe will be like the same way we don't know gravity and magnetism, we just know what it does. The same thing with
I think that's right, although if you talk to a scientist, you might have to push yourself a little bit. We don't know gravity, we don't know magnetism. So I mean, we know that there are ions which are gravitational, which are magnetic, and so forth and so on. But in the end, magnetism is a feature of what's called the electromagnetic field, and the elementary features of that field just are there. Two electrons, you push them together, and the closer they get, the harder it is to push them together because they repel one another. Why do they do that? Shut up and keep swimming. They just do. We know that. Why? There's no why. So far, they just do that. So and the protons and electrons attract because they have opposite charges. Why do they do that? They just do that. So I think you're right. These are things which we observe, and we see what they do, but we don't know why they do it. And quantum mechanical features is even more so. It's much more mysterious. Yeah. Oh, I mean, this was a big discussion in the medieval authorities. What is their state of knowledge of something where it happens regularly, but you can't explain why it happens? Is that called knowledge? Can you trust it? When you test a remedy, if you see that it works, but you have no idea why it works, so are you allowed to trust that remedy and use that knowledge to determine how you should perform certain laws of the Torah? I mean, philosophically, it's a very, very interesting category. Yeah.
That idea that there's still time in the world to come. We say that Purim will be the only holiday that shows up when it's resurrection of the dead, when it's the Messianic era. So will there be is there going to be a progressive destruction of the yearly cycle that we have?
Yeah, no, it doesn't say that. Everybody quotes it that way, but it's not what it says. People quote it as saying the only holiday that will survive is Purim. That's not what it says. What it says is, even if all the other holidays were to disappear, counterfactual, Purim won't. And to ask to explain that, some say that means if the government says if you keep any holiday, we'll kill you. What are you supposed to do according to Jewish law? You're not supposed to die for any of the holidays, not even Shabbos. You're not supposed to die for that. Under those conditions where the government will try to suppress all holidays and threaten you with death, Purim will remain. For whatever reason, however, Purim will remain. But it's the statement is even if, not that prediction that it will.
Because the whole theme of it is the government kind of mandate to destroy us.
Okay, I'm not done. I only give that as an example. I didn't say, could be that, the holiday foods become allergic. And could be done any way that you want. Is there something else? Yeah.
I mean, I was just, we mentioned earlier about Menashe, the evil king, and how the qualities of the angels do not allow them they are static, like they can't see any quality of Teshuva, like is it like a
No. That's not what we said.
That's a very extreme case.
No. That's not connected here. After all, what did we say? The angel said to God, not this guy. He did Teshuva, too bad. It was much too evil what he did. He's not getting out, and they blocked all the paths to heaven, right? And what did God do? He dug a tunnel and said, "Okay, guys, He's coming up my way. Now, I made the point there. Each one of the paths that they blocked remained blocked. Because Baruch Hu did not wipe away the roadblock. They saw correctly. This path to heaven isn't for Menashe. So they know what Teshuva is. They know that it's acceptable for other people. They know that there's a problem here. All of that is true. It's not that they can't appreciate. But what they see correctly. They just have a tunnel vision. There's a broader scope that they're not getting. And God's absolute commitment to Teshuva, that they didn't appreciate. But not because they couldn't understand Teshuva and say what it does. There's one facet they didn't see. And it's not because they're static. It's that the knowledge with which they are equipped doesn't include that piece. Let's see, I can figure. I wanted to say something here. Oh yes, in terms of time. So we have a tradition that says that the suffering of people who have to be rehabilitated in Gehenna stops on Shabbos. And it's restored after Shabbos. And after a year, it stops altogether. So at least in that condition, there's definitely time. So the critic will say, yeah, but that's not the part of the world to come I meant. That's only the initial stage. I meant, okay, you could say that. There are different stages in the world to come. That's for sure. But at least the world of the soul beyond the life, or the Rambam, beyond the life of the body, definitely has time in it.
So maybe the units will be preserved to some degree, at least in the initial stages.
Yes. But again, time can exist without units, because time can be just sequence.
Right.
You don't need units. You don't need units to have time. But if it's going to be change requires time. If they're going to get more and more understanding, that requires time. That's why I say time has to be there. Okay, so let's see. Today's Wednesday, so tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we'll finish this probably and start chapter 9. Then you'll have Rosh Hashanah. We'll finish next week, Mitzvah Hashem.
Nice, thank you.